Hello and welcome to On Air with Elk River Treatment Program for Teens, the residential program of Pinnacle Behavioral Health. I'm Selina Mason, the Director of Marketing and Outreach. Today we welcome Aletha Howie. She is the Special Education Director for Elk River Treatment Program and the other programs for Pinnacle Behavioral Health. Hi, Aletha.
Hello.
How are you today?
I am very good.
Okay, great. Can you give me a little background about your education and experience?
Well, I have been in the education business for about 36 years. 26 of those years were in public education as a special education teacher. I worked in the regular classrooms and in my own classroom, and the kids would come in for help. And all kinds of disabilities, math, specific learning disabilities, emotional problems, multiple disabilities, you name it, autistic, I did it.
Well, I know my own personal story, not to make this all about me, but I didn't just get into this business because I chose it. I mean, how did you get into special education? Did it find you or did you find it?
It found me because I started majoring in history in college, and then I joined a group. Then they made me the philanthropic chairman.
Oh.
So our philanthropy was mental disabilities. So I started going into Bryce and Partlow and some of the mental places that they had in Tuscaloosa. And
that's in Alabama, right?
Mm-hmm, and I completely changed my major to special education. It's different. It's not the same thing every day. All the kids are different. You're, looking into how they learn and why they learn. And and you want to see success in all children.
So how did you get to Pinnacle?
I retired and thought I probably would just get out of the education business and do something else after 26 years. And Karen Lee called me and asked me if I would come to a new adventure with an alternative education program that included mental health services along with the educational piece. And of course, I said yes. And it's been a wonderful adventure.
Karen's very hard to say no to.
Yes. It's been a wonderful adventure, and I have learned more than I learned in my 26 years in public education. If I had known when I was doing public education what I've learned now, I would have been a better teacher, a better parent.
Well, tell me why.
Because you see the whole picture. You don't just see them at school. We see them and we connect with the parents and the family, so we know where their learning issues are coming from. And when you see the light come on when the kids have been struggling in school for their entire life and they finally figure out that they can learn and they can be successful, when you put it all together, and it's just like a whole family connection.
So I guess we need to let our listeners know that Elk River is a residential program for teenagers, ages 12 to 18. We also offer an accredited education program that's for grades 6 through 12, and I guess a college prep as well.
Mm-hmm.
Kids with us are actually in a residential setting. It's a very safe, structured education and therapeutic setting. So how do you come in when a new child comes to us and starts to enroll in school? I mean, what's your role?
When we have someone interested in coming to Elk River, they've usually not been successful at home, in school, in most areas of their life. So, and that's why they're considering residential. I check and look at their records, their IEP, if they already have an IEP.
Can you tell people what an IEP is?
An individualized education plan that you have when you're getting special services at school, and also 504 plans. And most of the kids that come to us do not have 504 plans and IEPs, and they should have had 504s and IEPs. But sometimes the schools fail to refer them, and the parents just don't realize how serious their problems are at school, or that it's a connection between their mental health issues. School is a trigger for children with trauma, ADHD, any kind of learning problems. School is a trigger.
So as I understand it, we get kids sometimes to Elk River that are quote unquote behavioral problem, or they have behavioral problems, when in actuality, they may have a learning challenge, and their way of coping with that is to maybe, behave badly in school. The kid's not a bad child. I mean, but they're behaving badly for a reason. Am I right?
Yes. If they're frustrated, easily frustrated, in public schools, they go too fast for our kids. They're there, 6 hours a day, and about 4 hours of those days, that out of the day, is used for learning, and the other couple of hours is used for, clubs and lunch and
social.
PE and social. So it's a lot to put on a child that has learning problems and or behavior problems.
So how would a parent, I want this podcast to be a service for parents, not necessarily looking for a residential program, although we are here if they do need our services. But say a parent is noticing these issues, problems, behavioral problems, or what should they be looking for? I mean, how would they be able to identify my child actually has a learning challenge or a learning disability? Tell me the right language to use too.
Red flags that you want to really pay attention to if they're struggling in school would be your child suddenly doesn't want to go to school, especially in elementary grades. In elementary grades, I can't imagine a child not wanting to go to school. They have time with their friends. It's supposed to be a fun time, a learning time. So in elementary, if your child is not wanting to go to school, they're not bringing home their work, they're struggling, the teacher's calling you with behavior problems, those are all red flags. And it's time to start asking questions.
Now, who do they ask these questions to?
You start with the teacher. And if you don't get the answers that you're looking for with the teacher, it's best to go to a counselor and then possibly a principal. And one of the main things you want to keep in mind is to always keep your documentation of your contacts, who you talk to, when you talk to them, what was said, and follow up with an email or some follow-up questions, and just stay on top of it.
Well, tell me why that's important.
They deal with so many different parents and students, and they are responsible for child fines, and they're supposed to recognize these problems and refer so that parents don't have to do this. But it gets overlooked, and especially these times when school is not what it should be right now with COVID. But you just really have to stay on top of it and make sure that you follow up.
So, Aletha, what would be the next step that parents should take?
The next step, after contacting the teacher, talking to the counselor.
And you're talking about a school counselor.
A school counselor would be to make a referral. If things do not improve, if you come up with a plan and your child is still not improving and you're not seeing results, you would, in writing, make a referral to the school and just ask for testing, so that you think your child needs extra services. And in the referral, you would say, I would like for my child to be tested for special education services or 504 services.
Tell me 504, what exactly does that mean?
A 504 service is covered under Individuals Disabilities Act, and you get accommodations in the regular classroom. The only difference in the special education services and the 504 services is special education services get help from a special education teacher.
Okay.
Or an extra services from the school system, like if they need speech and language and occupational therapy, and those kinds of things are covered under special education. 504 services would just be accommodations in the regular classroom, like preferential seating, extended time on tests, more one-on-one help. If it can be taken care of in the regular classroom, then it's 504.
I got you.
If they need more services than that, then it would be the special education services.
Okay.
When you make that referral to the school system, your timeline starts on that day, and they have 30 days to respond to your email. They will require to have a meeting and pull their documentation together and meet with you and accept the child for the referral or deny them a referral. If you have documentation that your child is already seeing a therapist, a psychiatrist, a doctor for medications, then you're already one step ahead, and they should qualify for services. If you need more help, there are advocates that will help you weave through this maze of paperwork and, things that you need to do after that if you turn down.
How would a parent find an advocate?
Online. You just type in your special education advocacy in your state. And I do that on the side also. But there are numerous of us that do that for children. And we will go to the meetings. We will look through the paperwork and determine whether your child needs the services or not and attend the meetings at the school with you.
So is there a next step? Say they deny.
If they deny, yes, there's an appeals process. And you can have more meetings after that. And if you've got the paperwork to show and you really push that you want the services to happen, they will have to do the testing. They must do the testing. If you refer, usually you will not be denied.
Okay.
They want to prove, they're wanting to prove what they say. So they will need the testing to prove that they do not need the services. And you have documentation, even documentation that they're bringing their work home. And in math, they keep studying and doing their homework, but they're still bringing in C's and D's, and you just don't understand why. Then there's a problem. So it may be determined that they have a math learning disability, or it may just be reading learning disability.
Comprehension. Yeah.
Mm-hmm. It could be trauma.
Really?
Trauma in a child's life in elementary school, or a parent dies, a brother or sister dies, and if this emotional disability or this trauma affects their school life, then they will qualify for services, for extra services, and the schools have the resources to do that. Being an advocate for your child is the most important thing, because you are the only one that's going to speak up for them, and make sure that they get the services that they need.
When we get a child at Elk River, how often do you discover that these children might have a learning challenge?
It's often.
Really?
Mm-hmm. And sometimes it's not until they're in the 10th or 11th grade.
And they've been struggling for years.
And they've been struggling their entire, and you don't even really understand how they have made it to 10th or 11th grade without the services. So someone has missed the chance to address their problems. And it's not too late at that point, but it's almost too late at that point.
Tell me why.
They don't have much left. They're already to a point where they're struggling with reading, they're struggling with math. Usually at that point, they have just marked school off. They don't consider school. They're not ever going to be successful in school. And they come to us, and then we provide some structure and more one-on-one help. And they don't need an IEP with us because we do have the structure and consistency. They know what to expect every day. The program will, if they have a problem reading, the program reads the instruction to them. There's more hands-on, and they're not afraid to ask for help because it's a small group. So then the light comes on and they see how wonderful school could have been. And we try our best to, get them to a point where they can succeed. But the earlier that you find the problems, the better it is.
So they really don't have to get to the residential setting. They should be able to get that at home.
Yes, absolutely.
At their home school.
Mm-hmm. They have the services.
What happens when they leave a program that's, secure and very structured like ours? And is it best for them to re-enter their public school, or is it better for them to get the one-on-one assistance, through our program or another program similar?
A lot of our parents continue with our program when they go home. We've had a couple leave lately, and parents were so excited about their success that they want them to continue on our program, our school program that we have. And then we support them online. They could return to their schools, but they would need to have a meeting with the school prior to.
They as in the parents?
Yes.
Okay.
The parents need to let the school know that they have a child that has been in treatment. Their educational system the education program has been structured and they have been successful, and let them know that they have never been successful before and they want that to continue. And schools are responsible for setting up a program for structure for them to transition back into their school. There's just passed a new mental health act. It's called the Mental Health Services for Student Act, passed in 2020, which set up $200 million in grants that schools can request to set aside some services, some extra services and structure, mental health counseling for students that transfer from treatment back to the homeschool.
Wow. Do I guess schools know about this?
They may not know about this. So there are some
maybe
things,
parents need to educate the teachers.
There are some things that you can ask the schools to do. There should be a multidisciplinary meeting where they're bringing in all of their support personnel, their mental health. They have mental health professionals in schools. They're spread very thin, but now there's extra money to hire more if they need it. Everyone that sees the child during the day should have some kind of contact so that they know your child's coming back. These are the things that you're going to look for. And there should be a safe place for your child to go during the day, during the school day, and a safe person. There should be a safety plan in place. All schools can do this. They can't tell you no.
When you say a safety plan, can you be a little bit more specific?
If they have an anxiety issue at school, if they get upset, what is the plan for that? Who will they go to?
And if the child knows that in advance, I'm sure that's more calming than just walking back into school like they were prior to their therapeutic treatment. Mm-hmm. Well, that makes sense.
Yes. There are behavior plans that children with IEPs have. And it's step by step, and the teachers and the administrators, police officers, security, everyone has to be aware of that behavior plan. And it has to be followed to the T every day. And you have to be in close contact with the parents at all times.
You as in this?
The parents.
Okay.
Mm-hmm.
Okay.
The school and the parents' communication is important.
Because like a child that's struggling with maybe a high-functioning autism that hadn't been discovered until they were in a residential setting and some assessment and evaluations occurred and say that diagnosis was discovered. Mm-hmm. When they come back to the public school or any...
you take that treatment plan and that diagnosis straight to the administrators, and they should put a plan of action in place immediately. They can't put you off. They can't say, it's going to take time for us to do this. It should be immediate. if they have to do the testing and everything, there should be a temporary plan in place until the testing is done.
Gotcha. Can you share with us some examples of advocacy or, some of our graduates of Elk River, how did they transition back to school? Did necessary steps have to be taken, to make sure they were successful?
One that sticks in my mind, we had a young man come to us from about 50 miles away, and he was a behavior problem in school. So he already had a reputation. He was in the ninth grade. He had barely started high school, but was going downhill. He was sent to us, and it was a struggle in the beginning. He did have an IEP, but he had never been successful in school, even with an IEP. He had a home life that, we needed to work with the parents and make sure we got all of his core issues. And then with our computer program, he saw that he could do the schoolwork. And he had always been told that he was that he needed a lot of special help and he needed to be pulled out, but he was in the same classroom with the other kids and started being successful. And by the time he was ready to leave, he was being very successful. He had A's and B's.
So maybe for the first time in his life?
Yes.
Wow.
That's when the light came on. Oh, and he couldn't wait to get back to school. So he gets back to school. He was in class like the second or third day. And I think he had his phone out or, now they work on the computers, or he had the iPad and something he was not supposed to have. And you can't expect them to be perfect. But the school knew he was coming back. So the teacher demanded that he put whatever it was up and, was not real nice about asking him to put his things away. So he did what we prepared him to do, and he just quietly got up out of his seat and left the classroom and went to his safe place.
Was his teacher aware of his safe place?
His teacher was not aware of his safe place.
So a communication breakdown.
Yes. So she followed him out, and he went to his safe place. He went to the assistant principal's office, and he just sat down. Later in the day, they called his mother to come for a meeting the next day, which is a no-no because, you don't have to demand, you don't have to go immediately in. You need a time to prepare. That they were going, and the school informed her that they were going to place him in an alternative school with that one incident. So she called us and asked what she should do. So I volunteered to go to the meeting with her, and we had a huge meeting. They had all of his teachers, 2 or 3 principals, counselors, because they were determined, and it was me and Mom. And so they were determined that he was not going to remain at that school because of the one incident. And we just had to stand firm. We gathered all of our documentation, and at the end of the meeting, they were still determined that he was going to leave the school.
Was it the reputation that he had before
prior?
He went? Okay. They were basing it on that.
Mm-hmm. Instead of providing the support that he needed, they were going to just make it easy, put him in the alternative school, and be done with it. So we got everything together, went over her rights with her. We advocated. Anyway, to make a long story short, they could not put him in the alternative school. He did return to school after they realized that Mom had help and that we were going to see it through till the end. He did graduate.
Graduated from high school.
He graduated from high school. But it was just the fact, you just had to make them aware that your rights that you're not going away and that you're going to hold them to do what they are required to do by law.
Well, that sounds like really good advice for any parent, whether their child is struggling with a challenge, a mental health challenge or a learning challenge, to be an advocate for your child.
And when we do have students leave, I always let their parents know that, if you have problems, if you want them to go back to their regular school, and if you have problems, call me. I will, if it's too far away, because we get students from all over the United States, I will attend, as phone conference or Zoom or however they need me to attend, just to make sure that the school knows they do need to follow the law when working with these kids that have disabilities and emotional problems and have a hard time with school.
Well, do you have any parting advice for parents? If you could tell them one thing that they could do to help their child with their education process. Communicate with your child or
your
with
child
the school?
And the school system. If they start showing signs of not liking school, behavior problems, getting bad grades, there are always ways to correct those things and get them on the right track. Just ask for help.
Great. That's great advice.
Yep.
Well, thank you, Aletha, for joining us on air with Elk River Treatment Program. And thank you for listening to On Air with Elk River Treatment Program. We are the residential program of Pinnacle Behavioral Health. To learn more about our residential program for teens, you can visit elkrivertreatment.com or you can email info@elkrivertreatment.com. You can also call us directly at 866-906-TEEN, TEEN. Thanks again, and we hope you'll join us next time on air.